DEBx, amplifying voices, accelerating change.
Please help me welcome to the stage, Heather Hillenbrand.
Tonight, I'm going to talk about sex. Great, that's good for some of you, but for some of you, talking about sex can be challenging and confronting. Some of you, maybe in this very moment, feel some sort of tension in your body at the mere mention of sex. It's because since we were 12 and younger, we have been shamed. We've been taught to be afraid and guilty and maybe even convinced that sex just might be evil. But truly, at its essence, sex is all about pleasure. It's all about connection and celebrating life. Sex is natural. As a sex educator and an author of a sex education book, the number one thing I've seen among adults is regret for not having information about sex as a kid before they started to need it. And kids definitely need the talk about sex, but 12 is too late to start. It's time to start including them in the conversations about their changing bodies, about their curiosity, and about the natural exploration of themselves in relationship to the world. So first, let's talk about the problem. In the US, only half of high schools and 1/4 of middle schools participate in some sort of sex education program. And these programs are slim. The most common thing taught is fear of contracting an STD. They don't include all of the recommended curriculum, information about birth control, consent, healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, and specific anatomy. And studies show that kids are having sex as early as age 13. 12 is too late, but 12 is the typical age the conversation starts in the home, if it starts at all. Most parents are grateful the schools do it because they just don't know how to approach the conversation. Even my mom froze with a look of shock and surprise. At age 10, after hearing my brother and his friends say a certain word over and over again, I got brave. I said, "Mom, what's a boner?" Her look alone told me it was bad and to most likely stay away from them. In that single moment, I learned it was bad to ask, all the shame and guilt for speaking up, and that I should really never speak about it again. Mom was frozen with surprise, and she didn't answer the question, but she is not a bad person. She just did what we all do. She took her 35 years of experience and knowledge about sexuality, and she made up a whole reality about my question that I wasn't living. I genuinely didn't know what it was. I was curious. How many of you froze in your seat as I told that story or even spoke that word? Well, I guarantee you that kids are saying that word on the playground and more. I recently worked with a group of girls to teach them about the transition into menstruation, the beginning of womanhood. Afterwards, I spoke to their mothers to tell them about what we discussed and talk about any questions that came up for their daughters. Their jaws dropped in disbelief when I told them that the topic of porn had come up. Hey, now don't go there. These girls are innocent, remember? They're not sitting around viewing it. They had learned about it from older siblings and friends and pop culture. One of the mothers replied, "But we have parental controls on our devices." Well, that's good, but that doesn't mean that their friend's house has parental controls, or school, or free Wi-Fi, anywhere. They have access. Psychology Today reports that the research estimates that 90% of children first learn about sex through viewing it online with porn, around the age of 9. 12 is too late. And the impact is huge. Many surveys show that young women can easily access images of idealized female genitalia online. These images can create anxiety about how their individual anatomy compares, even though these women do not represent the entire population or the variety that exists. The images can create feelings of being unnatural or broken. Labiaplasty is the #1 most growing cosmetic surgery in that industry. This is a plastic surgery where the inner labia is cut down if perceived as too large. Girls ages 16 to 22 are the largest population pursuing labiaplasty surgery. And I can relate to this research. In my early teens and 20s, I hated my vagina. I thought it was abnormal, and I began to look for images that looked like me. And I was lucky. As an adult, I discovered an education that taught me that no vagina is the same, and therefore no penis is the same. And I was empowered to know that there truly is only one of me. And I challenge you to ask yourself why, if you are uncomfortable at mention of the words like labia and penis. Because at the core of each of us, each person in this room, there really is only one of us. And imagine with me for just a moment a world where the children grow up with that understanding. Okay, so we've established that kids are not getting the talk at school or at home, that parents can sometimes forget what it's like to learn from a child's perspective, and so they get their education other places, mainly the internet. So what do? Well, we meet kids where they're at. We answer their questions when they come up in the moment, no matter what the age. I overheard a conversation between a mom and her 6-year-old son in the store. The boy said, "Mom, what does a woman do if she doesn't want to have a baby?" And I loved her response because, wow, right? This is a huge question for a 6-year-old. But cool as a cucumber, the mom said, "Well, there are many things she can do. She gets to choose. She can take a pill, or she can not have a boyfriend." Their conversation went on as I walked to my car, but the key here was her acceptance. When we create cultures of acceptance in the home, kids feel free to ask the questions that come up in the moment, even the scary ones. Another thing we can do is remember just how innocent they are when they ask, and keep a sense of humor. Kids don't know what we know. They don't have the same influences that we've had about sex. When I was a nanny, I had to ask a 7-year-old girl to stop doing what she was doing and come to the dinner table. She looked up at me and she said, "Why? It feels so good and funny and kind of weird." And I thought to myself, if that isn't the truth about how it feels, right? Her total innocence and pure honesty in that moment was so real and so true. One of the biggest things we can do is to recognize and accept sex as natural. Because when we teach our kids that sexuality is natural and they can accept that, we teach them to love themselves. We teach them that it's okay to love their bodies, that they are in charge of their joy and their pleasure, and that they don't need anyone else to do it for them. And generally, people cannot take advantage of someone with that kind of power. Empowering boys and girls about their bodies and how it works actually can prevent those feared consequences like teen pregnancy or worse, rape. So, talk to your kids about sex. No, talk with your kids about sex, about their changing bodies, and about how what they experience is natural. Teach them from an age-appropriate perspective. Be open to their curiosity and how they are relating to the world. But don't wait till they're 12. Start when they are born, or start now. and make it a lifelong conversation. Thank you.